Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and very warm welcome to our next chapter. In this chapter, I would like to talk to you in all the details about the personal feed part. And in this very first video, I want to give you a brief overview, the starting point. I want to explain you a little bit more of the logic of consulting. Where are we coming from? What are the requirements on consultants? And therefore, what does it mean for your interview? What the interviewers are looking in you as a potential candidate. So let's get started. Basically, in this chapter, we are going to cover several things, but mainly I want to focus in how should you prepare yourself for the fit interview? Why exactly fit interview is so important and what are the qualities that are tested there? And of course, what is the level of expertise and preparation is expected from you in the personal feed part of the interview as a candidate and how you should be preparing yourself best for it. Let's get started. In order to start and to give you a broader picture, I want to give you a better understanding what are you expected to do as a consultant. So, as per classical definition, consulting from a recruiting perspective, a consultant is a very expensive advisor who solves ambiguous problems for clients and convinces the client of the solution. So as you see, it has three main components. Number one, you are expensive. Just to give you an example, when I was working as a consultant in my previous role, my daily rate costed for a client up to 3,500 euros. So, which means that every day I costed 3,500 euros to the client, plus all the further expenses, which actually means that a month of my work costed the client 70,000 euros. And the year of my work costed the client roughly 0,9,000 euros of gross compensation. It's roughly 1 million. It's really expensive compared to the in-house employee who could have been engaged for 10 times less. And therefore, you will always be facing these three main challenges in consulting. Number one, there will be always a crunch in resources. There will be organizations are hiring consultants only when they are really in need and when they cannot solve this problem on their own. It actually means that the expectations on you from the day one are so high and you need to fulfill those expectations. You need to solve a problem that this is already in a firefighting mode. And the time and the resources are in a crunch for you. Secondly, you need to solve ambiguous problems. What I mean by this is that ambiguity might be coming from two types of the problem. Number one, people, and number two, of course, data. From the people's perspective, even if a problem is just a simple one, but fundamentally, if there are so many stakeholders and there are, 40 different agendas of different people, they make the things very complex because they perceive the same things from the different angle. And you as a consultant need to solve these conflicts of interests that they might be having. And number two, there is always like a data ambiguities. There is either too much of information or too less of data. Imagine you're coming to the plant CEO is telling you, hey, look at our production KPIs. Here are the subtracts over the past 5 years. What's our problem? And then you are expected to solve it. So this is just to give you a feeling. If there has no been ambiguity in terms of the problem, if people were aligned or if there have been always the right amount of data, why they need to hire you as a consultant and pay this extra money. So that's why this is a constraint. And then last but not least, it's not only to solve those problems under the time crunching or resource crunching circumstances, but the good old days when consultants only came and intellectually developed the best solutions and then left them in the report to the CEO have already gone. So you are, as a consultant, are expected to convince the client of your solution in order to make the client implement this solution. Because otherwise there is no value add for the client out of the 200 pages report from a consultant which has never been implemented, because the people are actually not buying it in. That's why the third one is you need not only to create the solution, but you need to ensure that the client buys it in and that the client implements this solution. So which adds the third additional layer to the consulting challenges that you might be facing. And yeah, based on these three things, there are certain criteria which consulting is evaluating, which the interviewer will be evaluating whether you as a candidate, you can match those criteria and whether you could be a next good consultant. In these beauty contests, they're looking mainly for the 6 types of evaluation criteria. First of all, how can you operate under the resource or time crunch? That's why sometimes you will be facing very unpleasant or sometimes even rude questions or with a rude intonation from the interviewer, just in order to make sure that you are stress resistant and you know how to operate under the time or resource crunch. Secondly, is your ability to set and achieve challenging goals, which will be also tested in the personal fit part of the interview. Number 3, how you can structure complex problems and how you can basically make a data-backed driven decisions, because you would need to back up your solutions with the data, because this is the most secure way of how you can solve and sell the solution to the client. And then number 5, your top-down communication. How are you able to convince your counterpart, to convince your client with a solution? And number 6, it's convincing and communicating your solution to all the layers, so that you don't use the jargon from the industry, but you are using a very simple and a very clear language coupled with a clear structuring, so that you can explain your thoughts and express yourself to both to the coworker, to the blue part, and up to the CEO level. All these 6 criteria will be there in the evaluation by the interviewer, because the interviewer would need to probe and to check, are you ready for a consulting job? So if I hire exactly you today, what will happen next week when I will be sending you to the client? Will you make it? Will you solve the problem of the client? Or will you be just causing another problems in the team because you are not capable with that? Having this in mind, now just reflect about it. Like, what are the qualities that you need to develop in yourself in order to operate in this ambiguity under the resource crunch and still to be able to deliver and to communicate and to solve the problems and to convince the clients with your solutions? Because the interviewer will most probably play a role of a critical client. So, of someone whom he or she has personally experienced during the projects, and then they're just mirroring it to you. So how would you manage this complex or complicated type of the client? That's the overall basics. So that I hope now in this video you totally understood what does it mean for you to work as a consultant. And in the following videos, we will now be focusing more specifically on what is tested from that perspective in the personal fit part of the interview, and what do you need to do in order to deliver meaningful and impactful and very convincing answers. I hope you liked the first one, and now let's go to the content even deeper in our next videos. See you over there.